Okay, hello, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome. We're here for the next session, Stay in the Tail of Comet. And we'll have three people presenting this part of the session here. Deborah Antimori. Yes, sorry. Well, I'm too much elder than I was yesterday. Yes, one day makes a difference. I'm sorry. So she is a licensed professional counselor with 24 in private practice, 24 years in private practice. She's a trainer in training Brainspotting therapy and a member of David Grant's New York supervising group. Deborah has been a Brainspotting practitioner since its inception, having been trainee of David Grant in Natural Flow EMDR since 1998. She's also certified in System Psychomotor Therapy, PBSP, having studied with Al and Diane Peso as a member of the New Jersey training group. Deborah has presented at national conferences on the subject of the brain and grief, including anticipatory loss and pet loss. Sorry, I can't see it here. Originally a professional actress. Wow, nice. She received her master's degree from New York University Drama Therapy Department. As a grief therapist, she has a fellowship in thanatology from the Association for Death Education and Counseling. Her critically acclaimed audiobook, Journey Through Pet Loss, won an audio award from the Audio Publishers Association in its original edition and the Forward Book of the Year Silver Award for revised edition. Deborah has been researching aspects of neuroscience relevant to Brainspotting for the last several years. Currently pursuing her PhD, her dissertation will focus on neurobiological aspects of Brainspotting. All right, sorry, because I can't see here. All right, my arms can go further, sorry. It's hard. Okay, so yeah, could someone lend me glasses for God's sake? It's humiliating. It's humiliating, but you know. I wasn't like this yesterday, I can promise. Okay, thanks a lot. I hope this is so wow. Now it makes a difference. Okay, there you go. Martha S. Jacobi, PhD, is Program Director from Brainspotting Somatic and Creative Art Therapies at International University for Graduate Studies, Dominica. She is Lutheran pastor who maintains a transdisciplinary pastoral psychotherapy and consultation practice in New York City. She also serves as a pastoral associate at St. Luke's Lutheran Church, Times Square. Her practice specializations include trauma and spirituality, at-risk families and children, and creativity performance enhancement. She was a clinician with Faithful Response, a post-9/11 nonprofit organization, provides humanitarian services through the Resilience Center of Newton CT, and is a referral clinician for military veterans relating to the New York City Wounded War Project. A pioneer in using psychophysiological methods in congregational settings of care, she's a Brainspotting trainer and workshop presenter for clergy and spiritual caregivers, as well as mental health clinicians. She has advanced training in Bowen Family Therapy, EMDR, and Peso-Body System Psychomotor Therapy. Her work is informed by her background as a performing artist in music and dance. Her publications include Using EMDR with Religious and Spiritual Attuned Clients in EMDR Solutions 2, Robin Shapiro edition, Psychophysiological Therapy in the Concise Dictionary of Pastoral and Care and Counseling, and Smelling Remembrance in Sensing Sacred, edited by Jennifer Baldwin. She has studied with David Grant since 2002. Okay. Christine Rank, PhD, has been in private practice in New York City for nearly 25 years, previously a psychoanalyst. Christine was trained in Brainspotting by David Grant in 2003 has been in a private consultation group with David Grant since 2000 and recently became certified as a brain spotting trainer. Her PhD dissertation was on EMDR as holographic process, inspired by her fascination with her expertise in quantum physics. She's co-author of bestsellers Ignite the Genius Within, Discover Your Full Potential, book with bilateral soundtrack. For many years, Christine was part of the St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital Rape Intervention Program in New York City, providing emergency care and treatment for rape survivors. She's a women's self-defense trainer, and in that role, she has appeared on many national talk shows over the years, including The Today Show. She's nationally known corporate motivational speaker, internet talk show host, and webinar seminar teacher presenting Freeing Creativity, Get Ignited. As well as introduction to Brainspotting for a wide range of organizations. Before becoming a therapist, Christine worked for many months in the jungles of Borneo, rescuing, rehabilitating, and releasing orangutans into the rainforest. Originally trained with a music degree as a professional singer, Christine's vocal trio, the Janes, currently performs all over the US and Europe. Wow, that's a wonderful group. Okay, so here you go. Thank you very much. And thank you very much as well for these glasses here. They're fantastic.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let's get this party started. How many of you knew that this afternoon, on Friday afternoon, you were going to be studying quantum physics? No. Okay. Well, if you are not certain that you understand the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, you are in good company, because even quantum physicists do not understand the uncertainty principle. Okay. This is an uncertain situation. There. Mm-hmm. The people you love are 78.53% water. This is true. Deeper than that, the people you love are mostly empty space. Empty space. In fact, the stuff that we're made of, as we squeeze down all of the empty space in our bodies, the amount of stuff that we're made of that's solid would fit into a teaspoon. Teaspoon. And the vast distances between particles that we're made up of are as vast as the galaxy itself. Deeper than that, the people you love are actually only light and consciousness. Only light and consciousness. There's actually no there. The human brain, as David Grant frequently talks about, is one of the most complex objects in the known universe, and it has as many connections as there are stars, and probably more than the stars that we know about. And one of the things that he said to me once that I really liked was that the brain is the only organ in the body that cannot move on its own, and perhaps that leads the brain to create infinite movement inside itself, which is maybe why in our imagination we can travel to the ends of the universe. We can imagine anything, and we can change our brain's anatomy just by thinking about it. It takes time, but we can do it. And now we know, of course, that we can, especially with brain spotting. We no longer view ourselves as solid bodies, but as bodies composed of molecules and atoms and subatomic particles, and down and down and down and down. What is this made of? What is that made of? And mostly we are empty space moving in space-time. We are not just a body or a mind. We're really more like a body-mind. It's all connected. And by the way, did you know that no one has ever seen an atom? We all go to school, we learn about atoms, the nucleus and all of these little particles that orbit around the nucleus, just like planets orbit around the sun. It's a lie. No one has ever seen an atom. It's an idea. An atom is an idea. It's an idea that works with quantum physics. It explains so many things for us to be able to have this conceptualization that is beyond words, impossible to understand, and it's the best we can do. But it works. And that's what's amazing about quantum physics, is that it's the most successful and accurate science we've ever had. And quantum physics is responsible for all of the technology that we all appreciate and use now, including computers and everything. And it just works, and it explains everything when we think about things in this context. The universe was once the size of a pea. Actually, the universe was much smaller than a pea. But all of that stuff is still in us. This is what you look like. You and we are all made of star stuff. I'm sure you've heard this before. Everything that's inside of us is part of the universe. The fundamental principle of the universe is that everything is in a state of vibration. Existence is vibration, and everything is connected by that energy. When you get down to, okay, we have molecules, and we break it down into atoms, even though no one's ever seen one. And then the theory is that atoms have these particles, electrons going around, and then the question is, what is an electron made of? And then they find out that electrons are made of these little particles, and it keeps going, and yet at each level we go down, we go down, we go down, and we find out that at the bottom all there is energy, that there are no particles, that the particles are energy, and ultimately we're made up of those particles. Therefore we are energy. You are not in the universe. The universe is in you. And every particle interconnects with every other particle, and therefore the brain has to be infinitely connected to the entire universe. And there is some way in which all of us know that. We know it in our gut. We know it. We've had experiences of connection with each other and with strange and unexplainable circumstances. We know it, but we don't have words for it. Or we go, oh, that can't be real. That can't be real. It's not explainable. There's no theory to explain that. But we know it. You are unlimited awareness residing for a very short time in a physical body. So science is really almost right on the edge of proving that instead of what we think of as what's the ground of our experience, which is solid stuff, that matter is the grounding thing of everything, that is actually not true, and that instead the unifying basis of the universe may actually be consciousness. And quantum physics is sometimes called the science of consciousness, which is very cool. Quantum physics is a science that doesn't explain things in any way that resembles the science that you and I learned when we were growing up in school. So quantum physics is the science of infinite possibilities. So we appear to live in a very ordered universe, like this picture. You know, you hit a bowling or a billiard ball, and if you have the right equations and the right numbers, you can figure out exactly where that billiard ball is going to end up. And that is really what we call, or that's all as a result of Sir Isaac Newton, that science that says that X equals Y, 1 + 1 = 2. Things are predictable, and in fact, if you have the right numbers and the right equations, you can figure out since the beginning of time what to expect. And that fate is actually predetermined. There is no free will. That would be the science that most of us grew up with. But then, at the subatomic level, everything is really, really different. And a particle, as an electron, for an example, has a dual nature. It is both a particle and a wave. Well, it's both a particle and a wave. First of all, that's impossible. Who can understand that? And even quantum physics scientists can't really understand it. But it's the limitation of our words, the limitation of our understanding, and the way we frame it. But that a particle can be both solid and also wavy, as in spread out, just like a water wave, spread out all over everywhere, unidentifiable except as wavy energy. It's more like a wave spread out all over the place, just like this. And the thing is, and this is what we're talking about that's fantastic, the thing is that the wave, the particle is spread out all over like a wave until it's observed. As soon as it gets looked at, this is quantum physics language, it collapses into a something. It goes from to this, to something solid, as soon as it gets looked at, as soon as somebody looks for it. So cool. The rest of the time it's like this. So quantum physicists frequently say, they're always talking about how they feel like behind them, where they're not looking, behind them, the universe is just all soup. It's all wavy, soupy, soupy, soup wave, nothing distinguishable. And as soon as they turn around to look, it collapses into this. And so they never get to see the waves. They only see this. In this wave state, a particle is called non-local. That means there's no address. It's not local. It's not tied down. There's no address. It's all over the place. That's the word, non-local, because it really isn't anywhere. But instead, it's sort of everywhere, all at once. It's a wavicle. And in that wave state, a particle only exists in the realm of possibility. The possibility that it could show up in lots of different places and could look like lots of different things. So behind us, if you turned around, behind us is soup, just like this. And as soon as you turn around to look at it, it becomes that. Or something. The collapse is just like solidifying Jell-O, sort of. It's sort of like turning things right in the Bible. I think there's somebody gets turned into salt as soon as he looks or turns around. The waves become a something. The dancer and the dance are actually one and the same. In our particle state, the dancer, only one thing is possible at any given moment. But in our wave state, the dance, all things are possible. And this gives us access to the realm of possibility and boundless creativity. The outcome is changed by the decision to look or not look. If you don't look, it stays wavy. As soon as you look, it becomes something. So I want to tell you a little story. About 10 years ago, I was giving a talk somewhere, and I had a nephew at the time. He was only 7. His name was Paul. He was very, very precocious and very creative kid. I just love him still. And so they had children's programs alongside the adult programs where I was talking, and I thought it'd be fun to take him. So I took him, and he was all excited about going to this thing. It was the first time he and I had traveled together, and we stayed at a big hotel. And when we checked in, I gave him, we went to the room, and because I didn't know where I was going to be, and he had to be able to get into the room if he needed someplace to go, and even though he's going to be supervised, I just wanted to make sure he could get into the room if he needed to. So I gave him a key. At the time, it was, one of those cards, but it doesn't look like that. But anyway, so I handed him the key. I said, here's the key to the room. And he had big blue eyes, and he looked up at me and he said, oh, Aunt Titi, you gave me a key to the room. I said, yes, that's so you can get in. And he said to me, oh, Aunt Titi, I never even realized it was a possibility. So what did Paul get when he got that key? He got a whole new world. He got the world of keys. The world of keys that existed all the time. Keys were all around him, but for him, they didn't exist. They were not a possibility. He didn't even think about them. Suddenly, with the entrance of a key, now he's got a whole new world of keys to everything. Changed everything. So now he's going to be looking for keys, and he's going to find them. He never looked for keys before, but they were all around him. He didn't see them. What you're looking for determines what you see. So, if we know exactly how fast a car is going, we can calculate its exact location. On this level of existence, the solid stuff that we're used to, and Isaac Newton's science. If we know how fast it's going, we know exactly where it's going to be any moment. We have the equation, and it's exactly correct. But with quantum physics, that doesn't work. So here's Werner's uncertainty principle. It's impossible to measure the position and the momentum of a particle with precision with both. So as soon as you focus in on the location, you lose the speed. As soon as you focus in on the speed, you can't find the car or the particle. As soon as you focus on the speed of the car, you can't find the car. You can only find the speed. It's crazy, but that's quantum physics. If it was possible, then we could predict the future position of every single thing in the cosmos. But the reality is that reality is created by the observer. We have an effect on the outcome. You observed me speeding? Are you familiar with the Heisenberg uncertainty principle? The more precisely the position of the car is determined, the less precise is the momentum. Can't find it, can't figure it out. That's Heisenberg. And here's a beautiful picture probably from our resort, but maybe not. I don't, do you know anybody who looks like that? Anyway, but it's sort of the reason I put this up here is because it reminds me of Heisenberg principle was in the movies when you see, when the camera does a close-up, then everything in the background disappears. It fades. It's not that it's not there, but you can't see any of the details. You can only see these beautiful people. And vice versa, if they tried to move the camera onto the background, the people in the foreground would almost disappear. That's the Heisenberg principle. The way you look at something changes the thing you're looking at. The way you look at something changes the thing you're looking at. So, has anyone ever seen this picture before? Mm-hmm. Okay, a few of you. This is a picture of an old woman and a young woman, both. And I'm not sure which one you see most easily, but just take a minute to see if you can find both of them. Okay, I'm going to help just because. So this line down here, that's the old woman's mouth, and her nose going up, right? Okay, and the young woman, yeah, thank you. Oh, thank you. The young woman, this is the young woman's ear, and her nose, and her profile. Got it? And this is the old woman's mouth and nose and that. Okay. Yeah. So the thing is that now you know that they're both there, right? But you cannot see them both at the same time. You cannot. You know that they're there, but as soon as you focus in on one of them, you lose the other one. If you focus in on the young woman, you lose the old woman. But they're both there. We know they're both there. How you look changes the thing you're looking at. When you look at something a certain way, that's what you see. When you look at it another way, you see something totally different. What you're looking for determines what you see. Your choice has an effect on the physical universe. When the coin is still in the air, if you think about it, throw a coin up in the air while it's up there, is it heads or tails? It's both. It's both heads and tails. It doesn't become something until it drops on the floor and you look and you see, oh, tails. But in that moment in the air, it's both things, and it's what we call in the realm of probability or possibility. It's somewhere else. It's in this bland in between. I love this beautiful picture. Some people would look at that picture and think that that was the most beautiful, peaceful, just wonderful picture. And some people would think exactly the opposite, would not feel that that was a safe, soothing, or anything else picture. How you look at something affects what you see. That's why in Brainspotting, we want to follow like the tail of the comet because of this. As soon as we think that we know something about what's going on for that person, we've changed for them. Because we're looking for something that they may not be even anywhere close to. That's why you have to keep your mouth shut. Very challenging. Okay, so how am I doing? Let me quickly tell, I had a patient named Jason who came in, he was studying to be a pharmacist, and he had flunked the pharmacy test twice. He had one more chance. And he was a delightful young man. There was no apparent reason why he would be flunking, but he was panic-stricken because he really wanted to pass. So we did a session, and he told me this story that he had never told anyone else, which was that when he was 10, he was on his bicycle riding through the woods, and a man came out and knocked him off his bicycle and dragged him back into the woods and told him that he was going to rape him and kill him. And so Jason was literally standing up against the trunk of a tree, preparing to be raped. And he turned around, this man was crazy, he turned around and he he looked at the man right in the eyes, and he said to him, "My mother just died yesterday." And the man, he got all, and then he got furious, and he raged, and but he ran away. And Jason survived. Not only did he survive, but he was not hurt. And unfortunately, for a variety of crazy reasons, he decided when he was 10 that he was a wuss, that he should have said something, or he should have fought. He should have been a man. He should have done something, that the thing that he said was stupid, and plus his mother had never died. His mother was alive and well. Where's this stupid thing that I said? Such a stupid thing. I couldn't believe it, because these are brilliant words that saved his life, and he thought they were stupid. I'm stupid, I can't believe it. So, session 3, we're on a brain spot, and he's revisiting this situation, and I'm trying to keep my mouth shut. And he says, he's looking right at the situation, and he's looking right into this man's eyes, and he's looking, and all of a sudden he goes, "Oh my God." I'm thinking, "Oh my God, what's happening? I don't know what's happening." I kept my mouth shut, and then he said, he looks like my father. And I thought, oh no, it's his father. I kept my mouth shut. And then finally he tells me that when he was growing up, he had an older brother, and his father was always angry at this older brother. Always angry, and the brother couldn't take it anymore, and he ran away from home. And the brother fought back all the time. That was the big issue, was that the brother just kept giving the father a hard time, and the father would get so angry, and so finally the brother ran away, and the father was devastated. And so Jason decided at that point that he would never, ever say something provocative or angry to his father, because it hurt his father so much. He saw his father's face. This happened in an instant. He saw his father's face, and at that moment he thought to himself, without thinking, I have to say something soft. I can't make him angry. I can't say anything that will hurt his feelings. So he said, my mother just died yesterday. Brilliant. If I had said anything, or if I thought, if I had said, what a disaster. I had no idea. How could I possibly predict anything like that? P.S. Once he realized that, he began to realize how brilliant this was, this creative, intuitive, incredible thing that he did to save his life. The brain is unable to deal with conflicting information unless it can be integrated. So it picks one, just like with the old lady and the young lady. It picks one and represses all the information that does not fit with the dominant belief. So Jason had decided that he was stupid, and there was evidence all over the universe to say that he was not, but he couldn't see it. It was like he had sunglasses on, and don't all of us have our own version of sunglasses? We only see what we choose to see. A person who believes he's stupid will see confirmation of stupidity everywhere, even if there's evidence to the contrary. Belief creates reality. I am powerless and stupid was transformed in 3 sessions of Brainspotting 2. I am creative and resilient. Suddenly he began to see creativity and resilience in his life, and he went on to pass the exam with flying colors. The universe we experience is a huge mirror that reflects our individual and collective beliefs. Brainspotting uncertainty principle allows the opening of a doorway to a truth that has always been there, but was hidden from view by our sunglasses. Heisenberg would probably say you are a non-local awareness residing temporarily in a physical body. You are the dancer and the dance. Thank you.
I think I sort of want to have this to glance at. If it goes off, it's 2874. You did this one at 2874, but I can just look. This is your
party
water.
going down.
Okay. Hi. Waiting for my, oh, do I get mine to come up now? Yes. So, thank you, Chris. That was really beautiful. So, now we've looked at the quantum physics. We're going to look at a bit of what goes on in the clinical picture for us in our endeavor to stay in the tail of the comet and keep the client at the head of the comet, given all this information that we know, even though we don't know it because we're the uncertainty principle.
Maybe.
But we can know some things. So, what we do know is that being in the stance, in our dual attunement frame of relational and neurobiological, that empathic, attuned, and accepting and witnessing presence of the therapist is so important, that brain spotting really is relational first. And the bottom here, that ultimate resource, the client's survival instinct, which resides in the subcortical brain, that is really true on a neurobiological level for so many reasons. The fact that we've survived as a species with our little ridiculous skin and our tiny little teeth and, no nails, when you think of a buffalo or a muskox or the horns and the hides to deal with the elements, to deal with another predator, when you think of us and what our predecessors faced in other animals, warring tribes, the elements, it's amazing that we have continued on as a species. And I believe that this is because of the way that we bond, that the caretakers bond to the infant. We're born altricial. We're born that we need those parents there a long time. We're not like the moose that, gets up on its wobbly legs and starts following the mother. We are under the care of that parent, and had that bond not been there, and had we not bonded as a family, an extended family, a community, a tribe, we would never be here right now. This is something to keep in mind about the client's instinct to survive and the creativity and what can look like and what can get termed sometimes as the most pathological picture. It's like David's slide where we have the DID, the dissociative identity disorder that we used to call multiple personality, that really underneath it all, there's a very good reason for every little part, every little gear that interlocks into place given the history of this little one. So, our no assumptions model we've heard about, and David often says that being your natural self, I love this so much. I think that it's that authentic being and coming to clients as the person that you are. People feel this. It's not your words. My dad used to say, it's not what you say, it's your actions, and thinking of like love as an action verb. You can say the words, but people get it on a level when you are looking at them and when you extend your personhood to them. It begins to break down some of the reasons that they've come in that have been so hard for them, and for good reason, to trust, to try again. But here they are in their state, as David will say, of dysregulation. And we do have such a wonderful tool in ourself and in our humanity. So their survival response and our humanity are so key. And then, of course, bringing in our wonderful technology of brain spotting. So the brain and mind is self-organizing. It wants to be in homeostasis. It wants us to feel good. It wants us to be in that state where we can regroup, relax. But it seems that we have the same neurobiology as our ancestors who came from the plains and the jungle and were chased by elephants or whatever they were, saber-toothed tiger, whatever it is. They were warring tribes that nature features an anxious gene, says Louis Cozolino, that not anxious in the way that we would do something stupid, but over evolution is very slow to change things. Over time, he believes that we tend to come from the genes of those that, say you're sitting around the campfire and you look over and is it a bush or is it a bear? Ah, it's a bear, I run. The rest of the tribe says, ah, look at you, that was a bush, not a bear. Okay, he's embarrassed. He gets over it. Next day, somebody else is sitting there. Is it a bush? Is it a bear? Ah, it's a bush. Sits there. Lunch. He's gone or she's gone. Their genes don't go on. The other one survived. Now, David brought up, and it's true, you don't want to be like at the edge of the cliff and say, it's a bear when it's a bush, and there you go over the edge, and then your genes don't go on. So there has to be some intelligence in there, but we tend to have a reactive gene. And this is why in our world today, our modern stresses are so different than those who lived on the jungle and in the plains and had hunter-gatherer societies. Once the hunt was over, or once the life-threatening event was over, they had the bosom of the family, of the tribe. They had the imperative of tomorrow, I have to make sure that I have food and I have a place and shelter. And it was a very different way of living and being, but we have that same neurobiology because we just haven't been around that long. If you ever go to the Natural History Museum in New York City, they do a thing they call the Big Bang, which is the universe is created, and then you walk down this long spiral, and here's where this came along, and here's where that came along, and this dinosaur, and that Cretaceous period, and this Jurassic period, and woo, you keep going down, and finally, you get this little place like this, man and woman. It's very humbling, to say the least. So, our evolution-designed brain, we have our reptilian instinctual brain, our limbic system, our mammalian brain, and our neocortex. So, the development of the brain is bottom-up. So now we're going to look at a little bit of a brain piece of why stay in the tail of the comet? Well, the cortex is the last part of the brain to develop in evolution. As you can see, our very attractive ancestors here with not as big a cortex. Ours is getting larger and more convoluted, more folds and hills and valleys in our cortex. In fetal development, you can see how it takes up to, 8 months to get some little folds in here. Here's the 8-month. I can't get my little, there we go. We're starting to get some folds in here. This is where we get all the part of the neocortex that gets developed over the course of our life. But only 30% of that cortex is up and running in a newborn infant. The rest of it is developed in concert with the environment, according to our temperament and personality. And then that neocortex, again, in infant to adult development, which they're saying now, women around age 25, men around age 30, really for those executive functions, goal making, decisions, planning, really understanding consequences. If I do this, then that might happen. This is why we see such risk-taking behavior in teens and young adults. So the blue is showing us the development of the neocortex, and you can see coming up to adulthood, we're finally getting that last bit of development. So the brainstem is the only part of the brain that's up and ready to go, reflexive, our breathing, our respiration, our digestion, everything we don't have to think about. We don't sit there and say, oh no, I got to cut, heal, make platelets. We have all of these wonderful systems in our body that take care of us, that keep us alive. So this infant has this part of the brain ready to go. And within this part of the brain is that wonderful superior colliculi that we hear about that David Grand and Frank Corrigan wrote about in their first paper that was published in 2013 in Medical Hypotheses, recruiting the midbrain circuits in brain spotting to heal that truncated adaptation to a full orientation after a trauma. So here is our, in blue, you can see in the blue there, that's our superior colliculi, if I can get it. There we are. It's a little hill. Colliculi means hill. Here's our inferior. That's more auditory. But the hypothesis here is that based on Nakano, Blink research, they found with fMRI that the first thing they see is the superior colliculus in the midbrain coming online. It's at the top of the brainstem there. After that, with spontaneous blinking, what they see is then the insular cortex and the cingulate cortex coming online. These two parts of the brain are key for memory integrative function and for neural integration, for streams of both emotional and cognitive information to come in and get processed. So this sort of means like when we see an fMRI of a Vietnam veteran or someone who's been in a war or in a terrible tragedy, and we see that fMRI of their brain, we may see parts of their very reactive system, the amygdala in the limbic system that assesses danger. We may see parts of the brain light up that are good for fight or flight, but the parts of the brain that help with integration and help us to come back to a place where we are in homeostasis again are not lit up. And then they show that same person, their fMRI, after they have had their therapy or months of meditation, whatever, and you start to see other parts of the brain light up. This is what Frank and David are talking about. We're now getting parts of the brain online that when the client comes in are offline. Also, Yuri Bergman, who is David's office mate, calls this somatosensory disintegration. The brain should be working in a certain way for optimal health, well-being, and very well tested reality. Good reality testing. When we have somatosensory disintegration, we don't have that. That is the flashback. That is losing time, losing context, losing place. And so the hypothesis here is that brain spotting is really helping us through that frame, that dual attunement frame, in finding that relevant eye position to help the brain do what it does best. And we are there with our pointer, or the client is there on their gaze spot, and their brain knows what to do. And Jack Panksepp, who Frank Corrigan introduced me to his work, he's in the area of affective neuroscience, that of the foundation of emotions, and his book, in fact, is named Affective Neuroscience, the Foundations of Human and Animal Emotions. And he says that lasting healing occurs only when treatment accesses the midbrain level. And here we are in the midbrain. The midbrain, also, it has been said, if we lose that, if we get a lesion there, if we have severe damage there, we lose all sense of who we are. We lose our autobiographical self. Antonio Damasio has said it is the seat of consciousness. So this is a part of the brain we're learning more about, and we believe, hypothetically, from what we see goes on in brain spotting, this is what's going on. So why would we interrupt this process once we've set that frame and the client is ready to go somewhere that they can't go in their life? The minute they start to tell this story or get into this emotional place with another person, the other person changes the subject, or, oh, well, have you thought of this? Or, well, why would you feel that? You know, all the different things that people do in conversation, and people, quite frankly, are uncomfortable with silence a lot. So, in our limbic system, the mammalian brain, and we're thinking now of that developing brain, that brainstem is the only part of the brain up and running in that infant, makes preliminary evaluations. It's the original assessor. Is it safe and warm? Can I go towards it? Is it dangerous? Should I recoil? Is it so horrible that I have to freeze? That I do that dorsal vagal collapse faint thing that we've been talking about, where the body really shuts down, the last ditch effort at survival? And all this is happening without consciousness. It's the seat of implicit, unconscious memory. And I think that, you know, like, we know this as therapists, but I think this is a really hard concept to get. So Bonnie Badenoch's work, I found this helpful. that up to 18 months of life, the only kind of memory available to us is implicit unconscious. It's like an oxymoron. It's like the old, I don't know if you know George Carlin, oxymoron, jumbo shrimp. You know, like shrimp are little things, and then you look on the menu and they have jumbo shrimp. Well, it's like implicit memory. We think of memory as, well, when I'm 6 and my aunt gave me a necklace and I loved it and I was so happy about it, or I got hit when I was 10 or whatever, that we know that, okay, things happen pre-verbally, but this is how we are being built. We're being built with a foundation, the basement, the cellar of our house, that then the consciousness and the words and the language and what's possible for me gets built on. And this is what we're tapping into, I believe, when we are setting the frame and we have that superior colliculi hypothetically engaged. We get our insular cortex and our cingulate cortex online that can start to do some integrating where the person has been arrested in that maladaptive homeostasis that David will talk about, that we get into when we have been so traumatized. So encoded without our consciousness, everything, behavioral impulses, affective experiences, those of our caretakers as we see them come towards us, as we're this little baby, we can't move, we can't do anything, we can't even turn over in the crib yet. And then what we're feeling, what we're trying to communicate to them and how they respond to us, our perceptions and images, all encoded without consciousness, so that the impact of experiences with others, whether hurtful, all the way up to the scale of extremely abusive, or empathic and nurturing and loving and caring and appropriate containment and limits. Again, that is that family. It right from the beginning, helping that child be a child that can express their talents and their personality and fit into and be able to meet society and go out and be well reality tested. This is dangerous. This is great. I'm going towards that, and feel pretty much for the most part that is going to help them launch into their life. I believe this is what our clients are coming to us for, and that this is what Brainspotting helps us to do so beautifully when we stay in the tail of the comet. So we develop in the amygdala, our first organ of appraisal, general nonverbal conclusions about the way life works. So all this stuff, all these things here, they're going in. I have the worst time with this thing, but you can see it over here. They're going into that little brain, that little amygdala. Look at, there's an explosion, look at that angry face. And then later, as they're developing, as the limbic system, the mammalian brain is developing, and that 70% of the cortex is starting to say, whoa, I'm a loser. Look at that look on her face. She hates me. Oh my God, she wishes I was dead. I'm such a loser. You hear these things when people come in the office, and it comes from the basement, from that foundational soup level that Chris is talking about. That when we first come in as babies, we are so much in that soup level. We haven't collapsed into the particle yet. So conclusions from these implicit mental models create anticipations how life will unfold, what's possible for this person in their one life here to be able to be fully who they are. It forms our foundations for the perceptions and the thoughts of who I can be, what's possible for me, who are other people, what's the world like, and all of this remains largely below consciousness. So this way we're held in the family, this way that we're interfaced with, our brain is built in concert with the environment, becomes the way our brain figures things out and experiences things, and how we go towards the world and how we think of ourselves. And then in the brain, we have the top-down and bottom-up processing, and there are more ascending coming up from the limbic system and from that reptilian instinctual brain than there are descending from the cortex down. And the bottom-up processing is fast, while the top-down is very slow. So the speed of unconscious processing happens in 50 milliseconds. Like, I don't know, those of you that know Star Wars, I don't know how much of a cultural phenomenon it is, but we've got Han Solo and Chewbacca here go into hyperspace, which, normally when you're looking at the stars, they look like little dots, but they go so fast that those dots collapse, Chris, they look like lines. So it's fast, fast, fast. And conscious processing is a tortoise slow 500 to 600 milliseconds. And while this may sound like, oh, please, give me a break, Deb, that sounds so fast. In brain terms, it's not. That unconscious 50 milliseconds has got the advantage. So with all that, we ask, why am I talking? And in English, we have this cute little acronym of WAIT, why am I talking? W-A-I-T. So maybe we should come up with one for Portuguese before we leave here to ask, why would we do this? Oh, look at that poor client. And how we can get, out of the tail of the comet. David was talking about the limbic countertransference this morning in his keynote speech, and how that is happening to us no matter how well put together we are. Our filter will collect what is coming from the client, not only their words, but that energy and feeling and that soup place from them that gets touched on, that either may be the reason that they're coming in, what happened long ago to them, or what happened more recently that has that red thread, that has that connector to what happened, such that this is their base of operation. This is what dangerous means. Here's what I go towards and is warm and fuzzy. This is what I cringe from. It has that connection. And again, that's what we believe, or I believe we are accessing by the client staying in the head of the comet. So, another thing that David will talk about is our deprogramming from what we've been taught in our programs. We got to make a treatment plan, and we got to have goals, and we have to do this and that, and chart. And yes, we have to chart and do these things in our different institutions if we work in hospitals or agencies. But what we do in the session with the client, with the brain spotting, gets them more to the place that we would hope for them than all of this trying to decide ahead. And of course, we have to document with insurance payment or however your system works, how we have to account for our results. And then what we're taught in our programs, it's this idea of facts versus beliefs. What is really true in what we're taught about psychological fact? Is it in fact mythology? So that we believe it as a collective fact, but in fact, it's not based on fact, and we will buy into it because we need this group that believes this way, that works this way. And so sometimes people coming to brain spotting trainings are getting into this sort of world of you set that frame and you do the work and you really sit back and you really decide, should I intervene, just like Chris did with her client that so beautifully ended up in his coming to what that meant to him when he said that his mother died to that predator man. And then if clients are in compliant mode, we can go out of the tail of the comet. Sometimes it'll seem like, oh, they're doing such good work. Oh, they really love coming here. But then all of a sudden they're not coming anymore, or they're coming in and they're saying that, well, things weren't so good when they got home, or whatever it may be. But something where they get into that mode where they have to please, almost like Stockholm Syndrome, where they're like the child again, that they have to accommodate to what they think you want. They want to please you. So what you're doing, even though it doesn't match up for them, sometimes that's very obvious, but other times to just find ways to see how you might drop out of the tail if that occurs. So here's the client going along, and then whoop, this was me talking. Wait, please, wait, blah, 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 blah. But when we do talk, we want to use language that is open and non-specific. What do we ask? We ask, how activated are you, 0 to 10? But try not to talk about a lot of details because it pulls the person up quickly. They get in that left brain, and then they can try to figure out why they feel that way. And we just don't want to engage that. We want to drop them subcortically. it's okay if they bring it up. We listen to it, but we try to move to getting to the brain spot if we can. And next we ask, where do you feel it in the body? Because they feel that in the brainstem and in the spine. It is that brain in the body, body in the brain. And that goes to that third layer that we were talking about, that little superior colliculus, that little hill on the midbrain there, that the tactile. So we have the tactile going, the bodily felt sense, we have the visual going, we've got our midbrain engaged. And as I said before, Antonio Damasio says that the midbrain is the core of ourself, and I love this from Jack Panksepp, that lasting healing occurs only when the treatment accesses the midbrain. So we do that intentionally in brain spotting. And it's such a privilege to sit in front of a client and to really let them take the reins when they have not been able to do that in any other arena in their life. So we want their brain in bloom, and ours too, and I thank you very much.
We got started so late. We did. You know, I mean, we didn't start till
There we go.
4:20. Oh, we didn't. I mean, 4:30.
Okay, home stretch. Home stretch. You heard Chris talk very eloquently and humorously about quantum physics, about uncertainty in the big macro outer sphere of existence. You've heard Deb talk very skillfully about our inner sphere and what we don't know that goes on inside the bony structure of our skull and in all of that mushy stuff, gelatinous goo that we call a brain. My part of this presentation is to really focus on okay, so we've got the outer science, the inner science. What does it look like in our practice? What does it feel like for us? What does it feel like for our clients? So to refresh and review, the uncertainty principle in brain spotting, it's grounded in physics and it's grounded in neurobiology, hard sciences. It is our job, if this is our client and their comment, it is our job to stay in the tail, to follow it wherever it goes. Client, therapist. When a client has special needs, if a client is starting to become so activated that they're starting to move outside of their window of tolerance, then we need to narrow the frame and the focus. And so as therapists, we move in a little closer for only as long as we need to, and then we move back. We move in as much as we need to and move back. When our clients are wanting to do enhancement work, or as we're moving back, then the client and we make sure that we are giving enough space for the client to do whatever they need to do, go wherever they need to go, and we sit and hold the space, hold the frame. We're present with them to let them do their work internally. Uncertainty in practice is about moment to moment to moment. All the little micro moments of the wave and the soup that are swimming, we're just together, we're a dyad swimming around in the soup together. And every now and then the client will pop down into some words, collapse it into the words that give us some sense as therapists of where they might be at. So with that, my colleague Sue Pinko is going to come up and we're going to do a very, very brief demonstration. And what I want you to be watching for in this is how uncertainty manifests itself in this little micro demonstration. what I do right, what I do that's not staying in the uncertainty, how I follow Sue, where I talk too much, where I pull it back. I'm going to do this as transparently as possible, and we'll see what happens. So Sue, hi. What would you like to be working on for this demo?
So, is this on?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, I find when I get tired that I have a physical, I don't know if I'd call it a flashback, but I had a car accident a number of years ago, and I describe it as being the paint. When you go into a hardware store in America, you're buying paint, they put the can in this machine that shakes it. And so that's my visceral sense. I was coming off the highway near my house, and someone was coming up the exit the wrong way. So I was hit at the same time with a car head-on and rear-ended. So I would like to, I guess, dissipate that feeling in my body. There's not I don't notice any emotional loading with that, but...
To what extent have you worked on this before?
I think maybe years ago I worked on it, which is why there's not the emotional loading, but what feels new is my awareness that it shows up when I'm tired, when my body's tired.
And does it show up at any other time?
But I'm thinking of the song, I would say probably yes.
Okay. You've done a lot of work. Is your sense to work through the accident or to go directly to the body sensation or something else?
I nodded my head yes to the accident, and the body sensation is what's most present for me.
Are you feeling it right now?
Yes.
Then why don't we go from that? How activated are you, 0 to 10?
A 4.
Okay. And we'll do some inside window with it? Okay. So where do you feel it the most in your body? Where do you feel it the most in your body right now?
In my upper torso.
And if you look at the pointer, is it more to your right? More in the middle? More to the left? Exactly where? It's okay.
So I don't know if you can see it, but my body is clenching and then relaxing.
Let's go from there.
I was bouncing around a lot. I went from the accident to another accident that I had where I was driving down the West Side Highway and someone came from behind me and then bounced off the side of my car. And at that point I had my 90-year-old parents in the car and thankfully my brother, because I told him that he better deal with the guy because I'd kill him. But so some of the memories I had were clear and some of them felt like implicit memories that I really didn't know the content of. But my body feels more relaxed now.
So since this is a very short demo, 0 to 10, where are you at right now?
I was going to say 0, but I'm probably at 0.25, pretty close to 0.
Okay. So if we were not so time pressed, I would have you go from there. Do you feel like you're in a place that we can wrap down and debrief?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Oh, good. We have 10 minutes. Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, thanks. So just like we do in trainings, we'll start with Sue, come back. I'll share. We'll start with any personal debrief that anyone has for Sue. Anything that you'd like to share with her? I will share with you, Sue. It was a privilege and honor to work with you around that. Sue and I talked a little bit this afternoon about what she might want to work on, and I had a clue that this was a possibility, but had no clue that this was what she was really going to work on. And as you were presenting, there were several different things that came up, and so finding the focus around which to set the frame was the first piece from my perception of real uncertainty of exactly what we were going to do. We had very, very limited time. Just a lovely piece of work, and you've clearly worked with this, so you have a nice base to be working from.
Well, and it was a privilege and an honor to work with you, and I loved how you started by taking the pieces and then asking me what I wanted to work on. And as you were asking, I found myself calibrating. And so the therapy started immediately and deeply.
Good. Is your hand up? Or are you scratching your head? Oh, okay. Thank you for that feedback. I would never have known without Sue telling me that she was assessing each thing until she said that, as she reported out, what her experience was in response to my asking. Anything else, either personal or technical at this point? Yeah, Bernard.
Sorry. Gonna talk in Portuguese and they translate for you, or do I talk in Portuguese and they translate for you, or do you speak in English? What's better for you? What's better for you?
English.
If English, okay. So, Sue started blinking. I don't know if you saw that. And I have personal experience in my office that when people blink very, very much, very quickly, and sometimes I even encourage them to do that, sometimes it works better for them. I don't know if you have this kind of experience, or if for Sue it was something that she could perceive and see if it could work better for her or not. But many times I see it working very well, and maybe other people here also have the same experience, I don't know. But what about you girls first?
Thank you. have been if Martha had said, blink a lot. What I love about this work is that we make space for whatever comes up. And so my blinking rapidly and my body movements were things that I've learned over the years in working with brain spotting, both as a patient and as a therapist. You just accept. And the non-judgmental acceptance is a huge part of the healing.
Yeah, different clients process differently, in my experience. For those of you, I'm sure not everyone could see because Sue was pointed a little bit this way, but her eyes started blinking very, very rapidly. And she stayed with very rapid blinking for quite a stretch of time, and then it just slowly started to get slower and slower and slower and slower. And then the breath, that we often see like that at the end. And it was a decision point of whether to say something then, and you spoke first. Mm-hmm. As far as asking someone to start blinking, I wouldn't typically do that. I don't think I've ever done that necessarily, unless it's someone who has gotten into such a fixed place, and I'm trying to, there may be something that's an unhelpful dissociation. I'm coming in and doing, coming into them for the eye contact, and they're still not there, and I might say to them, can you try to blink your eyes? And I can't remember the name of the article off the top of my head, but it's a Japanese article. Takanobu, do you remember the one on the blinks? Nakano, yeah, that suggests that when we blink, it's actually resetting our brain. So we're going into some kind of different state when we blink. So the more spontaneously and organically that blinking happens, in theory, the more it's coming from inside the client and what they need rather than externally imposed. Anybody else? Yeah. Somebody. Musical mics.
I noticed how comfortable you felt. I would have been very nervous, and I'm sure you were, but you didn't look that nervous. So, first of all, I just thought it was amazing that you felt so comfortable to actually move the pointer to where you needed it, and for you to allow it, and also the distance. Of course. Yeah, which is amazing. But for the client to have that comfort, to be able to do that, that's amazing. And so I didn't know if you could comment on that.
My clients do that all the time.
They do this, really?
Yeah.
Because mine don't do that. I don't know if it is because maybe they don't trust me or something.
When I work with, Sue and I know each other very well from New York. We've known each other for about 15 years, I think. So, so there's some backstory relationship, certainly in this personal relationship. In my practice, when I'm giving people instructions about brain spotting and educating them about the brain and about what we do, and the first time I use the pointer, what I will often do is, say we've located the brain spot, and I will often throw in something like, I probably will move it because it's, humanly impossible, and depending on the client, it depends on how exactly I say this, but if I move it too far out and you need to put it back, just tell me where to go.
Okay, good. Excellent.
Tell me where to go.
Excellent.
Okay.
So maybe it's part of my lack of instruction, probably.
Well, that was well timed. So, on behalf of all of us, we hope that this has been informative, and thank you so very much for coming. And Sue, thank you for sharing in this with us. Such a good client.
That was wonderful.
Wonderful.
You got us back on track.